Hello folks, today I'm going to try to do two things at the same time with two different telescope kits. With the solar telescope, I'm going to be imaging the sun, and I'm specifically interested in getting the proms. The way I'm going to do it is you will not see the proms in the image. You'll see the sun's surface, but I'm going to run a pretty high exposure on the sun's surface, but I still want detail of the sun's surface. And then in a program called IMPPG, I'm going to invert this image, and that will bring out the proms and the surface. The surface will be inverted, but it's still kind of a magical look, and you can see detail both in the proms and in the sun's surface. Now that's the plan. We'll see how that goes. Also, last night I took darks. I had calibration files set up, and the reason I did that is I ran two telescopes last night. I ran the Edge with the 2.5 TeleVue PowerMate and an ASI224, and I was imaging Jupiter through the clouds and Saturn through the clouds until it just became nearly impossible, and then I shut down. But with the other telescope kit, let me explain. There are three kits outside right now that I'm using. I'll bring up a, let's see, is this it? Okay. Well, over here, the furthest covered up with the Telegizmo is the solar kit. And then where you see Vixen, this is an old picture, I have the Edge. And this telescope that's closest to us, the Stellar View, I'm going to be taking flats. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be taking flats, and I'm going to show you how I use Sequence Generator Pro's Flat Wizared. And I've done this in prior videos, but I need the flats. I took darks last night. Again, the reason I did that is I was fighting clouds, but I had zero threat of rain. And in the south, if you can't image the sky and you have no rain possibilities to speak of, then I think it's a good idea to go ahead and take your darks, and in some cases your flat darks, but I didn't. I just took bias and darks, and now I'm going to take flats. So I'll have a whole new set of calibration frames. These are permanent setups, so I can get by using flats over again. I couldn't do that if I was taking these down and putting them up every night, because I'd be mindful of dust and stuff getting jarred around and happening, not to mention changes in focus and changes in even camera may move some if it's not snug tight, and that happens occasionally. So being permanent, it allows a lot of forgiveness of a lot of work that normally a person who sits up every night has to do day in and day out, that they can image. So with that being said, I'll show you the polar scope I'm using, and this is what I'll be imaging the sun with. I won't probably use the scope on the top. I'll use the scope on the bottom. The scope on the top is a Daystar Scout, Solar Scout, and it is a solar telescope. And I've got an ASI220 camera. No, that's a mono camera, That's a 120 camera on the back. And then on the bottom scope, that is another mono camera. That's an ASI174, and attached to that is a tilt adapter. Both of them have tilt adapters because you have to combat Newton rings, and I still find them showing up in images. And then there's a Quark Chromosphere attached to a moonlight focuser, and then the scope. And the scope is an Astrotech 65 EDQ. Underneath the focuser is a Pegasus Ultimate Powerbox version 2. And I have these boxes on all three kits. They're just, I love them. It doesn't get any better than for data management, data cable management, and for managing your power. It really just doesn't get, that's as good as it gets. So with that being said, let's go now to, let me share my screen, and I will show you, this is first of all the sun, and I want to move the sun over so that the surface is just touching this line. That's how I'm going to be able to reference putting the sun exactly back where it belongs. And because it is going to drift some, the solar kit is not on a pier, it's not polar aligned, it's close, but I have drift both in RA and deck. It's an AVX mount, and it's far from perfect. So I'm going to nudge the sun over using my hand controller in the north key to just where it barely touches, and that's where I'm going to image. I'm going to take a time lapse. I hope to get about 3 hours of time lapses in. I'm going to take 1,000 frame images at intervals of every frame, every 1,000 frame AVI file every 20 seconds. I'll use a 20-second interval. That'll give me a little wiggle time to adjust the mount if I need to move it back on the line. If you're not careful and you click somewhere on your screen during the day, your crosshairs move. And I don't want the crosshairs to move. If they do, I want to be able to put them exactly back where they are. And the way I know that is that I move them until this line touches the top corner of the box down here, and this line intersects the corner right there. So I'll bring the crosshairs back to where it intersects the corner and touches the top of that box, and it's basically back. And when you're doing a time lapse, you want the sun to stay in the same exact place. It helps the stacking software, the alignment software. It just makes everything go smoother. Now, let me show you the proms, and I'm going to do that by running up the gain a bunch. And now you'll see the proms showing up. And so we've got all across the rim here, we've got some, it's not very remarkable, but at least it's some activity. And when there aren't clouds in the sky, I'm going to do some imaging. And even if there's no proms and really no spots, I'll find something noteworthy and just the image, because I enjoy doing this so much. It's the most fun you can have in your backyard. I'm blessed to be able to have a 360-degree view of the night sky and to have my setup. I'm very thankful that I'm able to do that. You can already see where my sun looks like it's drifted, but and it has some. But when I bring this down to say 119, let's go to 120. And you also have to watch your exposure, because down here is my exposure histogram, and I'm not clipping, but I'm getting very close to the right side of the histogram where I could be clipping the brights, which are over here towards the center of the sun. So I need to move the sun back again. I'm going to nudge it north. To touch the line. Okay. Now, let's go over to the other telescope. And I have Sequence Generator Pro running. This was, let me move the dimmer out of the way. This was the set of darks that I took last night, and bias. I took 50 bias frames at the fastest exposure possible, which is how you do that. You do that with your cooler, your camera. Let me just, okay. You do that with your camera cooled to the temperature you're going to be using when you take your lights. And so it's minus 15 degrees. I'm going to be doing flats. I've heard that flats are not temperature dependent. I do it anyway. The only thing I really do need is the filter wheel and the camera. I'm not going to change any focus, and the mount's not going to be having any movement. So I've got those turned off. No need to have them on when you're doing flats. So those are done. And I took flats from 15-second exposures. I use that for stars. And then to 300-second, 5-minute exposures. And I took 20 each. I would have liked to have taken maybe 30 each. I would prefer to have 30 darks. But that would have taken more night than I had. And I started these flats at 9:30. And I took them throughout the night. I mean, not flats, darks. I think and hope you know what I mean. All right, right now, I'm going to take the LRGB flats. I've got them checked. I'm going to change the exposures. These exposures are way too fast for my liking. 9 seconds is good. But 0.98 seconds, I'd rather have in order to get a good flat, a good histogram, I'd rather that going well over a minute, or well over a second. So at any rate, I'm going to take 50 each. And the way I'm going to determine my exposure, I'm going to set this window aside. I'm going to Tools and Sequence Generator Pro, and I'm going to go down to Flats, Calibration Wizard. And then I'm going to choose the profile that I'm using. And actually, I'm just going to use the current sequence. And I click on that because that's the sequence you just saw in that prior window. And I'm going to take the L, and I just want 1-on-1 binning. I don't need to click the box, and I don't need anything else. And just click 1-on-1. And let's do blue. Okay. I want the target mean. I get a fairly decent centered histogram, maybe just a hedge to the left where I prefer it. When I take 28,000 ADU, the maximum exposure is 1200 seconds for the ASI. This is the ASI1600 monochrome camera. It's the Pro camera, and I use 0 for the exposure. Now, let's bring up the dimmer. I use this dimmer called the Spica Flat. Spike-A-flat. You can probably, I don't know if I can show you that or not. Let's see. Let's go outside with the surveillance camera. And we're logging in. I got towels on everything. Okay, yeah. Here's my kit outside. This is the Spica Flat. And it's attached to both power. It's connected to power on my Pegasus. And it's also connected USB to the laptop you're looking at. And this is the edge, and this is the solar scope. Although the telescope, the meaningful part of the telescope is on the sun, I have a towel over the rest. And the only reason I have towels on these kits, well, probably two reasons. Keep stuff off of them, but keep bird stuff off of them. Because we have a lot of bird feeders outside and bird houses, and we have birds everywhere, and you know the rest of that story. All right, so let's run the Wizared. I'll click Start. And, oh, let's stop. Let me go back to the dimmer. The dimmer allows you to kind of set your profile. I'm using the 70T, but you could add your telescope. I got the Edge and the 70T I'll be doing. I'm using the 1600mm Pro. I am not at gain 200. I'm at gain 139, offset 21. And it's not an ADU of 20,000. It's going to be an ADU of about 28,000. I'm going to start off with an exposure brightness of, let's say, 50. And let's see what happens. Let's take one. I'm going to be looking at my histogram more than anything else over here. It took a 5-second image and it was well overexposed. It just took a, okay. It's saying that a 0.72 second image gives me a 2880 ADU. There we go. It's going to be close now because this is where the histogram is just a little slightly left of center. And you can see what the flats are looking like, typical flats. Now, when I do the narrowband filters, and the reason why I'm not doing both, the narrowband and the broadband filters at the same time, is the narrowband filters are going to take much more light. So I'm going to have to bring the dimmer switch and raise this up to about 800 in order to get my narrowband filters with a reasonable exposure time at a 28,000 ADU. But I love the Sequence Generator Pro's program for taking flats. And I'll show you what it does when you're done. And I really like the spiker flat because I'm inside my home and I'm able to control the computer, which is connected to the dimmer. And so I don't have to stay outside. By the way, it was unable to get a green flat after trying 10 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this tolerance level to about 700. I'm going to uncheck red and blue, and maybe it just needed a little more, and I'll start again. Maybe it just needed a little more tolerance. Okay, it's close now at 2.74. We have a ADA of 626. We're at 28,850. We're at 26. It's going back and forth between these two. I'm going to stop this. I can already tell. Let me give it a tolerance of, I could change the ADU to 900 and that'll solve it. Pretty cool stuff. I haven't started imaging the sun yet. I want to get these flats going because they'll take a while. Then I'll start the time lapse on the No, why isn't that coming on? All right, we succeeded. So we're at 274 there. All right, now that I know that, I'm going to retake them all again. And while I'm taking them all again, I'm going to fiddle with my device here. So I may bug out of the picture. My Elgato streaming board thing here is not working. Let's see where it goes. There we go. All right, I'm back with you. We are, let's see here. Green's still taking a, that's 9, there we go. No, that's not it. It's been a pain. It got it. It's a 281, 219, 71. And again, it just gives you a great flat, a pretty precise histogram. So we're done. Now I'm going to put save. And it has successfully saved these exposure settings to the current sequence. We're going to look at just one, so I'll show you. The lumen filter is 17.71. Remember that? And we'll remember this one, 2.19 for red. So we save this. Yep. Let's go ahead and close it. Let's bring this up. Let's go down to where our flats are. And remember, lumen was like 0.71. Well, we're going to have to trick this. I'm going to go light, and I'm going to go flat, and it went to 71. You kind of have to, it's already has the settings from the last time that were saved, but I varied the ADU. I actually raised it from 25 to 28. I found it works better. So I'm going to go to dark, then I'm going to go back to flat, and we're at 2.19. So it's putting the right numbers in now. And all we did were the LR and GB frames. So I think we're good to go. And let's go ahead and start running the sequence. It's going to move the filter to the L down here at the bottom right. So we got the L filter set up, and it's already started taking flats. It's taking the first one. It'll take 50, then it'll rotate to the reds. Before doing that, it'll change the filter to red, then blue, then green, and then I'll have to run the Spica flat panel and raise the exposure. I'll try 600 and see how that goes, maybe 700, 800. I usually end up around 800. It goes a little over 1,000. I think it's like 1,041, some odd number, but it works. And that's Sequence Generator Pro's Flats Calibration Wizard. Boy, if you've got Sequence Generator Pro, I highly recommend that you become dependent on the Wizared. There's what the flats are looking like. Which are pretty typical. Vignetting in the corners, dust spots, and little amp glow. Looks like down here at the bottom, but it's not. Great big giant dust mote here. Okay, let's go back outside to the sun. And let's take our northernmost. I'm using also two other reference points. Let's get our sun down here a little bit closer to the bottom. Too close. Come on, come on, come on. Touch. Too much. Let's go back up. And then we got to go. I'm going to move to the. I get dyslexic on which one of these buttons moves. There we go. Moving the sun to the right so that it lines up with the line, the diagonal line right there. Okay, let's knock off our first. And what we're going to do is let's take a quick capture. Last night I was taking 10,000 frame AVI files for the. See what happened? It's a good lesson. If you point your cursor, your crosshairs move. So you have to go back up and turn it off, the reticle, and then turn it on again, and to bring it back, move it over so that it touches. Right now I'm touching that first corner. Zoom. Get it back here in a minute. You don't want to move it if you can help it. All right, I haven't started them yet, so that works. I'm on this corner there, and I'm on the corner down here. Close. Move it. Okay. I'm going to set up the start capture. We got the name of this is going to be Sun Proms. I'm going to go up to Sharp Cap Settings. I'm going to go to File Names, and I'm going to click on my external hard drive. I'm going to have to go out and connect that. Somehow or another I must have knocked it loose. Okay, I'm back. I hope the hard drive isn't going to give me a fit. It's an external SD drive. Last night I did planets, and I want to see something here real quick. Nah, it's not going to show it. I need to bring up my files to do that. So, at any rate, what I want to do is click on my SD drive is working. All right, let's go here. It's an external 1 terabyte drive that I use for my images when I'm imaging, and because my hard drive's packed. And if I started saving these AVI files, especially the ones that are 10,000 frame AVI files, I get one maybe. I may not even get one file because it is packed. Let's see. We want to create a new folder, and that's going to be 8.8.21, and it's going to be Sun, Prom, and Surface. It is a time lapse, so we're going to make sure that my Winju posts, file names is connected. Let's apply it. Always remember to hit apply. Otherwise, you're still back on the other. Let's go. I got to move over north to bring it over some. I've drifted. And then we're going to. We drifted both north and we drifted up. So I need to bring it down. That would be west, I think. Yeah. All right. We're west. And we are. Let's make sure our proms are still there. Yep. So let's go back to 120. And tell how light it's gotten already, because the histogram is now clipping. Particularly if you're doing a time lapse, you're going to have to pay attention to your, let's try 8. I want to go a little bit more. 9. Too much. Let's go back to 8. Leave it at 8. All right. So we'll be taking at 8 milliseconds, 70 frames a second. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take, start the time lapse. I'm going to click on Start Capture. Last night I was doing 10,000 frame files. Now I'm going to do 1,000. And I'm going to do a series. I want, no. I want, 1,000 frames. Let's do 300. Let's shoot for 350. And because I can go to 130, 1030, 1130, 1230. 130's transit. I probably won't get 350 in. And so let's start. And down here at the bottom, we're capturing frames at 70 frames per second. Just kind of slow for 8 milliseconds. That should be, I could raise my gain a little bit, but it introduces noise. So we have our first one done, 349 remaining. I'm going to head back to the other telescope for a minute, and let's see where we are with our flats. We've taken all of our looms. We're about to finish up our reds. You can see our histogram is pretty well positioned, just slightly to the left of dead center. So that's looking fine. I'm not really too worried about it. I'm not too sure why my camera started warming. Yes, I am. I know what happened. Let's abort. Let's just start. Let's turn it back on. Let's start cooling. I know what happened. When I went out to unplug the, I did. Okay. When I went back to connect the, no, that was the other kit. Then I went back and connected the SD card. I don't know what happened. Lost. But at any rate, for some reason it stopped cooling, and so we'll start that back up again. They say that flats aren't temperature dependent. I like to keep them at the same temperature I take my bias and my darks at, which are the same temperature I take my lights at. No, and that's a little kind of, that's a question for people that know a whole lot more about it than I do. The temperature is the temperature, it's cooled to the temperature below ambient. At night, the ambient temperature might be 70 degrees. In the daytime, it might be 85 degrees. So the minus 15 target for cooling is a huge difference in sensor temperature, because 15 degrees less from 85 degrees, you know, that's 70 temperature. And then if you have 55 degrees for nighttime, 55, 70, that's a big difference. So I don't know. It's kind of confusing. I just do what everyone says to do. It seems to work. The images seem to manage the flats and the bias. I will tell you that I've been trying to figure out whether the taking flat darks really makes a difference, and I can't see it. And so rather than fool with taking flat darks, which are nothing more than flats with your scope covered up, using the same exposures with your scope covered up. So you take them when you take your darks, you just use these exposure settings. I can't see a difference. And so I'm taking bias frames, and I don't know if it's just, they say it's an amp glow question, but I really haven't been bothered or tormented by any amp glow with any ZWO camera, and I have several of them. So. All right, let's go back and see if our time lapse is moving along, and we're going to have to no doubt move our mount because I'm sure it's shifted. Little shifts like that are okay, but I want to get it close so that I make the stacking software work less. So we're going to nudge it back over during this preview. And there we go. And I'm going to have to move it down just a little bit. Nope. Nope. Because we're getting ready to, there we go. Now we're capturing again. So if you can see what I'm doing, I'm keeping the sun, first I'm keeping the crosshairs in this position on the zoom, on the corner, and I'm keeping the sun close to the bottom and touching here. So in order to get it close to the bottom, I'm going to nudge it down west a little bit. And we're getting ready, now we're taking another 1,000. While that's doing it, we have, it's about to finish that one up, and we have 339 remaining. While that's going on, I want to go look at last night. And bring up I had a question about planets that I did last night, and I had some I did after 12 o'clock. Okay, you can tell this is a an image that will have to be debayered, but that was Saturn. That's a 10,000 frame image of Saturn. It's a long video, and let's took Jupiter. Yeah, I was thinking that you might have a red spot, but clouds were just insane. I already deleted half a dozen videos of Saturn, and because no sooner than I started, the majority of the planet was covered with clouds. It looked good when I started, and then clouds destroyed everything. Okay, well, I'll be processing those today. As a matter of fact, I'll be processing those in just a few minutes. But for now, let's make sure I've got this thing pretty close to where I want it. I may nudge it a little bit south. It's starting to drift. South means that the sun will go to the right some. This is a ASCOM hand controller. It comes up when come on, move. There we go. It comes up when oh, I went too far. It doesn't matter. When I have to, as soon as this capture's over with, I'll bring the sun up some. I'm going to go ahead and capture and I'll move it over. You got to babysit them when you're doing time lapses and you don't have a kit that's okay, let's bring it down. And now we're good for the capture. Okay, folks, I think you got the idea of what I'm going to be doing all morning, and that is babysitting this mount so that I get 350 frames between now and 1:30. It is work, but I love seeing the results. So we've taken 19 of these 1,000 frame AVIs, and we're about to take another. My histogram's looking good. As soon as this moves on or stops capturing, I'm going to move the sun to the left a tad. Get it back on the line and then down west. And now we're pretty good. Starting to capture again. Okay, I think I'm going to turn it over to you. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day and clear skies happen in your neck of the woods.